This is November 2nd, and the essence is, sweet children, become accurate in your thoughts. So accurate is a very interesting word to think about. Accurate means correct. It means meaningful, significant, pertinent, appropriate. So think about, if your thoughts are like this, then the words and actions would follow. So become accurate in thoughts, words, and actions, because you are the top knot, the Brahmin top knots, who are higher than the deities. So there is a hierarchy actually inside your own soul. So the highest is the Brahmin, and next comes the deity, next comes the warrior, then the merchant, then the Shudra. And this practice of Raj Yoga is all about going from the Shudra to the Brahmin. So the question is, what is the most incognito and refined aspect that even you children understand with difficulty? So to understand the secret of Shiva Baba and Brahma Baba, this is to understand the most incognito and subtle aspect. It's very, very difficult for people to see past the body. And so when people see the body of Brahma, then they think there's the soul of Brahma only. And here it is the soul of Shiva Baba speaking through the body of Brahma, and Brahma is also speaking. So two of them, two people in one body, is hard for people to grasp that. So some children become confused about this. The Father himself shares this secret. Early in the morning, I teach you children through this body. So why do we have the schedule we have? Because it needs to correspond with his schedule. Otherwise, if he comes and we're not here, that doesn't look right. Baba says, I do not use this chariot throughout the whole day. So Shiva Baba comes and goes. And so he comes regularly for the Murli, but other times he comes and goes sporadically and unexpectedly. Om Shanti. The spiritual father is explaining to you, spiritual children, Brahmins. So we have to be in the consciousness of being a Brahmin to listen. Do not forget that you are Brahmins who are in the process of becoming deities. You must also remember the castes. So it's not a caste by birth, but a caste by sanskar, by level of consciousness, quality of being. So here, among each other, you are all Brahmins, and the unlimited Father is teaching Brahmins. This Brahma is not teaching you. So explaining is one thing, teaching is another thing. So two different things. So Shiva Baba is teaching you, that is, Shiva Baba is providing you with information, and Brahma Baba is commenting on that. It is only through the body of Brahma that he teaches Brahmins. You cannot become deities without becoming Brahmins from Shudras. So that has to do not just with lifestyle, but Especially it has to do with consciousness. You have to be soul conscious, aware that your relationship with Shiva Baba is through Brahma Baba, and be on that high level of consciousness to take in the knowledge. You receive the inheritance from Shiva Baba. So the primary inheritance is the knowledge. Shiva Baba is everyone's father. And this Brahma is called the grandfather. So everyone has a biological father, and people on the path of devotion also remember the paralokik father. So you have lokik, alokik, and paralokik. The alokik, the unusual, the extraordinary father, is Brahma. The paralokik, the one from beyond, is Shiva Baba, and then your
recording in progress.
Father. You children now understand that this one is the alokik father. So alokik is a lot deeper concept than subtle. It means that he has been adopted by us and we have been adopted by him, and it's a very subtle thing to understand, but I think you better stick with the word alokik, otherwise there'll be confusion. So this is the alokik father that no one knows, even though there are temples of Brahma. And here in Mount Abu, there is also the temple of Adi Dev. So the temple of Dilwara is also called Adi Dev and also Mahavir. And it's a Jain temple, but it's still the temple of, actually the temple of Brahma, but they don't call it the temple of Brahma. So he is also called Dilwara. But in fact, the one who conquers your heart is Shiva Baba, not Brahma Baba. And it is just the one Father, Shiva Baba, who makes all souls constantly happy and gives them joy. Happiness means he gives them the wealth of the knowledge. Only you children know this. The people of the world do not know about these things. We are Brahmins and we are claiming our inheritance from Shiva Baba. And you also forget this again and again. Remembrance is easy, but it's very subtle. If you drop your consciousness, then you can't have remembrance. Sannyasis use the word yoga, but you use the word remembrance. Yoga is a common word. People usually think of yoga as referring to pranayama, hatha yoga exercises, etc. And those people stick to the material world. So this is not called a yoga ashram, but it is the home where the father and his children are sitting. So it is the children's duty to remember the unlimited Father. Duty in the sense of, if you know who you are and what you stand for and who is giving you your identity, then you're fulfilling your duty. We are Brahmins and we are claiming our inheritance from the grandfather. So in this sentence, the grandfather is Shiva Baba, the father is Brahma. But in the previous one, the grandfather was Brahma and the father was Shiva Baba. So you have to follow these things. So this is why Shiva Baba says, continue to be in my remembrance as much as possible. Also, remember the pictures. That means be conscious of what's contained in the pictures. Then you would realize and remember that you are Brahmins and you're claiming your inheritance from the Father. So very clearly the knowledge is the inheritance. Could a Brahmin, Lokik Brahmin, ever forget their caste? It's part of their identity. But you forget that you are Brahmins when you are in the company of Shudras. So that means when you're in the company of people with a lower level of consciousness, and you drop down to their level. So remember your level. Brahmins are higher than deities because Brahmins have the knowledge. God is called Jani Jananhar. So Jani Jananhar means the one who knows everything but independently of observation. You know it in advance. And he's aware of what's going on in everyone, but he doesn't let you get away with saying, I'm not going to say what's going on because Baba already knows. He won't let you do that. So being Jani Jananhar doesn't mean that he sits and looks at what's going on in everyone's heart. But Jani Jananhar means that he knows the beginning, continuation, and end of the world, the past, the present, and the future. He is the seed, so that knowledge is contained within him. The seed is aware of the beginning, middle, and end of the tree. So you must remember this Father a great deal. And this one soul, Brahma Baba's soul, is also remembering that Father. And that Father says, it's only when this Brahma remembers me that he will claim his status. You too will claim a status if you remember me. Initially, you came here bodiless, naked and alone. So you come here bodiless, and you have to become bodiless again and return home. All other bodily relations bring you sorrow. So since you have found me, why are you remembering them? So you remember, once you become Babas, they don't have any rights over you. So otherwise, they own you. So since you have found me, claimed him, why do you remember them? I have come to take you back to the new world, and there is no sorrow there. There are divine relationships there. Divine relationships means they are functioning in a virtuous way. Here, in the relationship of a man and a woman, there is sorrow because they begin their relationship through vices. And I am now making you worthy of that world where there is no question of vice, worthy in the sense of you are viceless, so you can be in the viceless world, you fit. It is remembered, this is a phrase from the Gita, that lust is the greatest enemy. And this is because it causes sorrow from the beginning through the middle to the end. So it's very deceptive. It's based on physical attraction, and then there's a lot of possessiveness involved and dominance involved. So then it becomes a matter of causing harm. You would not say that anger causes sorrow from the beginning through the middle to the end. If you get angry with someone, you get violent with someone, it's a short-term problem. Lust creates a long-term problem. So you have to conquer lust, because it is this that causes sorrow from the beginning through the middle to the end, and it makes you impure. The word impure is used when referring to this vice. So you have to conquer that enemy. You know that you are becoming the deities of the golden age. Until you have this faith, that means understanding, you will not be able to attain anything. The Father is explaining to you children, you have to become accurate in your thoughts, words, and actions. So if you don't understand the knowledge properly, or you mix it up with some other knowledge, then it becomes inaccurate. So this accuracy requires effort. No one in the world knows that you are making Bharat into heaven. As you progress further, they will understand it. They will want there to be one world, one kingdom, one religion, and one language. So in this case, religion means something more like culture. You can explain 5,000 years ago, there was one kingdom and one dharma, and it was called heaven. No one knows about the kingdom of Ram or the kingdom of Ravan, and you also didn't know about them. Now you are becoming those with clean intellect. So clean intellect means that everything that you accept as truth is self-consistent and it's honest and real. So you're becoming this number-wise according to the efforts you make. The Father is sitting here explaining to you, and so definitely you should follow the Father's directions. So the Father says, while you are living in this old world, live as pure as a lotus. That means no secondary agendas, where you do one thing, but you have another thing behind that. So that's a dishonesty. Also, continue to remember me. So motivation, very important. The Father is explaining to souls, I have come to teach souls through these organs, the mouth and eyes and ears of Brahma Baba. This is an unclean, polluted old world, and you're in an unclean body. Therefore, you Brahmins are not worthy of being worshipped, as worship is only of those who are clean. So you can be praised, but you can't be worshipped. Deities can be worshipped. You make the world into heaven by following Srimad. And this is why you are praised, but you cannot be worshipped. So worship is effectively a whole set of rituals to honor a person. And so that level of honoring can only be done to someone who is that level suitable to be honored. It is definitely Brahmins and not deities who are praised. So deities don't do anything in terms of service, or they don't do anything heroic. So there's a difference between those golden age deities and what's called the Shiv Shaktis that are actually the Brahmins. But you're not full Shiv Shaktis yet, but Brahmins, so you're praised with the effort that you make and everything like this. The Father is changing you from Shudras into Brahmins. So you're still part Shudra, part Brahmin, trying to become a deity. So it's a little bit like what happens to the chrysalis. So when a caterpillar goes into a chrysalis and there is this metamorphosis that takes place, if you would cut open the chrysalis at any time during that process, you would not see something that's half caterpillar and half butterfly, but you would see a horrible ooze. And so the stage of being a Brahmin is you're not a Shudra anymore and you're not a deity yet, but you're something that doesn't have any proper form. And so it's actually quite difficult to go through this process because you're not one thing or the other. So the souls and the bodies of deities are pure. And you souls are now continuing to become pure, but your bodies are not pure. So the level of honoring that's called worship can only be done if body and soul are both pure. You are now making Bharat into heaven by following God's directions. So you too are becoming worthy of heaven, worthy in the sense of you're getting a pure body and a pure soul, both of which are required in heaven. You definitely have to become subtle pradhan. It is only you Brahmins that the Father sits and teaches. The tree of Brahmins will continue to grow. And those who become firm Brahmins will then become deities. That means if you're not a firm Brahmin, you won't become a deity. This is a new tree, and there are storms of Maya that affect it. There will not be any storms in the Golden Age. So anytime you experience a big storm, you have to survive it, endure it, hold on until it passes. So here, Maya doesn't allow you to stay in remembrance. So you have hidden agendas, attractions, repulsions, karmic accounts, all this gets in the way. Doubt in yourself, doubt in others, arrogance, all this. You know that it's only by having remembrance of Baba that you will become a subtle pradhan from Tamil pradhan. So everything depends on having remembrance. So remembrance means you're connected and you're pulling in the power from Baba. So the ancient yoga of Bharat is very well known. So they know that it's special, but they don't know what it is. People abroad desire someone to come and teach them the ancient yoga. So there are two kinds of yoga. One is the yoga of the Hatha yogis. So the Hatha yogis, when Baba's speaking Hatha yogis, he's referring to the sannyasis who belong to the Vedanta, those who are of the lineage of Shankaracharya. And then the other is that of Raj yogis. So Raj yoga is what is taught by Shiva Baba. Now you are Raj yogis. That Hatha yoga, all different kinds of Hinduism, that has been going on for a long time. You now know about Raj Yoga. But what do sannyasis know about Raj Yoga? So they know about matter, they know about the element of light, but they don't know about souls, and they don't know about God, and they don't know about drama, they don't know about heaven and hell. All this is not known to them. So the Father has come and told you that I come and I teach you Raj Yoga. Now, Krishna cannot teach Raj Yoga. Why? Because he's in the Golden Age. There's no need to remember God. everything is fine. There's no impurity, so there's no need, no possibility of Raj Yoga when he's alive.
There are no audience.
Well, there are people in the golden age, but they're all pure. So no, you can't attain God unless you want him. And you can't want him unless you're in full-on deep trouble. And that can only happen in the end of the Iron Age. So all these aspects are self-consistent. And people say, well, why do you have to go to hell? If you don't go to hell, you can't get to heaven. And you have to go through hell in order to get to heaven. And you can't look for God unless you're in hell. And he can't come unless there's a need. So everything fits together. But it's a bit difficult for people to figure it out until he puts it in his way. Then you see it from his angle and it makes sense. So this is the ancient yoga of Bharat. In the Gita, instead of my name, they put the name of Krishna. And that changed everything. When it is the birth of Shiva, when Shiva arrives, that's also the time of the birth of your paradise, in which there is the kingdom of Krishna. So you know when it is the birth of Shiv Baba, the birth of him, it comes at the end of the Iron Age. And that is also the birth of the Gita. As soon as he comes, he starts talking. And as soon as he starts talking, paradise starts getting created. So that's also called the birth of paradise. And you will then become pure. Because as soon as you have exposure to Baba, it starts disturbing everything. And that process of purification is a process of disturbance. So we talk about peace, but it's very disturbing to become peaceful. So this is paradoxical. Establishment is taking place exactly as it did in the previous cycle. I'm just going to move this because it's going to pick up breath. Therefore, the birth of Shiv Baba means or implies the birth of heaven. Baba himself comes and establishes heaven. So the Father says, now remember me and be in contact with me. Because you don't remember me, Maya makes you perform one sin or another. So when you're disconnected from Baba, you're automatically body conscious. So then you activate your body conscious sanskaras. You become soul conscious, you'll activate your soul conscious sanskaras. And so it's up to you. By staying in remembrance, you won't be slapped. This is the boxing that takes place. You know, it is not a human being who's your enemy. Ravan is your enemy. Attraction, repulsion. After a Kumar and a Kumari get married, they become impure and then they become enemies of each other. And because they get into conflict as to who is dominant over who. They spend hundreds of thousands of rupees on the wedding. And so Baba says to get married means to ruin yourself. You put yourself in a victim-predator situation, which you don't like, and so it's very unpleasant. The Paralokik Father has issued an ordinance. Children, lust is the greatest enemy. Conquer it and make a promise for purity. No one should become impure. You have been impure for birth after birth through this vice. And this is why lust is said to be the greatest enemy. So it's called Kama Sutra. You know, there's one scripture called Kama Sutra, entirely about sex. And Kama Sutra means the bondage of lust. So as much as you get into lust, that much you get tied up. And as much as you're in prison, that much you don't like it. So the Father explains to you very clearly how you have taken 84 births. Now you have to return home. You should have pure pride. That's like self-honor. Understand who you are and don't do anything that lowers you down in your own eyes and God's eyes and everybody else's eyes. We souls are following the Father's directions and making Bharat into heaven. We will then rule the kingdom in heaven. To the extent that you make effort, so you will claim a status, whether it is to become a king, a queen, or a subject. You are seeing how kings and queens are being created. You're seeing it right in front of you. It is remembered, follow the Father. So this aphorism, this phrase, refers to the present time, and it does not refer to your worldly father. This Father is giving you a direction constantly. Remember me alone, and then your sins will be finished. So by his remembrance, you deactivate your tendency to do negative karma. And that's called finishing your sins. You understand that you're following very good directions and serving many people. You children come to the Father, and so Shiva Baba refreshes you. And this Brahma Baba also refreshes you. This one, Brahma Baba, is also learning. And Shiva Baba says, I come in the morning. So when someone comes to meet me, can't Brahma explain anything? Would he say, oh, Shiva Baba, you come and explain, I will not explain? No. These are very incognito and deep matters. This is Brahma Baba talking. I can explain the best of all. Why do you think only Shiva Baba explains, and this one could not explain anything? So that's Shiva Baba talking. So you can see in some Murlis, you can see clearly which sentence comes from Shiva Baba, which sentence comes from Brahma Baba. Now again, Shiva Baba talking. You also know that this one explained in the previous cycle also, which is why he attained his status. Mama also used to explain. So you can see from this Murli comes after 1964 when Mama left the body, or after 65. There's different people say different dates for Mamas. So she too claims a high status. You see Baba there in the subtle region. So you children have to follow him. You have to also reach your subtle angelic form and leave your body and go there. It is only the poor who surrender themselves. Wealthy ones cannot surrender themselves. It's in the sense they have too much to lose. Wealth, position, power, prominence in the society, prestige, this and that. They won't give that up. So the poor who say, Baba, all of this is yours, have nothing to lose. So, okay. Shiva Baba is the bestower. He never takes anything. He says to you, children, all this is yours. So whatever you put in Baba's yagya, that's your investment. It's not a donation, actually. Baba says, I do not build a palace for myself either here in the confluence age or there in the golden age. I make you into the masters of heaven. You now have to fill your aprons with the jewels of knowledge. So your aprons are your intellect. People go to the temples and they ask the deity to fill my apron. But which apron is it, and what should it be filled with? It is Lakshmi who fills everyone's apron because she gives money. People do not go to Shiva. They think he's the destroyer, so they won't go to him. They do go to Shankar. They want him to fill their aprons, but if they want money, they have to go to Lakshmi. So it is said of Krishna that he spoke the Gita, but they don't say, when they go to see the images of Krishna, they don't say, fill our aprons. They go and say this to Shankar, because they believe Shiva and Shankar are one and the same. But actually, Shankar is the one who empties their aprons. So no one can empty our aprons. Destruction has to take place. So what will happen in destruction is you lose everything. All your money, your body, your relatives, your buildings, everything. Om Shanti. It is remembered that the flames of destruction emerged from the sacrificial fire of knowledge of Rudra. So this is that. But no one believes it. There's stories. And most of the stories in the myths are so fantastical that it's like cartoons or monsters or whatever, but no one actually thinks that it's a reality. They think it's symbolic. So they get the symbols they think as real, and the real things they think as symbols. So it's all backwards. You children have to live in your households and carry on with your business. The father will give advice after taking each one's pulse, because he says, why would I give advice which a child would not be able to follow? So many people come to Baba, or they used to come to the daddies and say, here's my situation, what should I do? And a lot of people would call that Shrimat, but it's not the same Shrimat as the concepts of Gyan, but this would be advice. And so the daddies and Baba would give advice in the understanding of what the person can actually fulfill. Because if they tell you to do something that you can't do, then they would force you into doing a karma that is against God, and they would also have to pay for that. So it's a very subtle aspect of karma philosophy. So he will give advice to the one who can act on it. And so you cannot apply the advice that's given to one to another person. And there's a little story about this. You all know the senior brothers, Brij Mohan and Ramesh. And so the question arose as to whether you can drink a cup of tea made by someone who's not a Brahmin. And so the advice given to Ramesh is that you cannot. And the advice given to Brij Mohan is that you can. And the reason for the difference was not because of their difference of level of yoga, but because of their difference in their professional situation. So Ramesh was the boss of his company, Both of them were accountants. And Bridgman was an employee. And so if the employee refuses a cup of tea from his employer, that's a heavy insult. And so Shiv Baba would not tell him to insult his boss, whereas Ramesh is already the boss. So he doesn't have to, show respect to anyone because he's already the boss. So this is an example that's often used to explain how differently the advice is for different people. That depends on their circumstances, situation, their level of gyan, their level of yoga, all these things. Then you will be given advice accordingly. You have to come to this one. He will give you the right advice. Each one of you should ask, Baba, what should I do in this situation? What should I do now? So then after Baba, sometimes people would ask Avyakt Bab Dada when there was their meeting, very often. But now, no more daddies, no more Baba in the physical plane. So now you have to really understand that you have all the information you need to make good decisions. And also, you're not children. BKs are an aging population. So there are a few new ones, but not that many. The Father sends you to heaven. You know that we are going to become residents of heaven. At present, we are residents of hell. But you are now neither in hell nor in heaven, somewhere in between. Your anchors, or the anchors of those who have become Brahmins, have now been raised from the dirty world. So you're no longer anchored to the alokik world, to the society of the alokik world, but you're in transition. You have now left the shores of the iron-aged world. And some Brahmins are going ahead very fast, and some are very slow on the pilgrimage of remembrance. And when some let go of the Father's hands, they choke and drown. So you're on a boat. And if you jump out of the boat and you fall in the water, you will choke and drown. And that means you end up in the Iron Age again. The boatman is now taking you across. There are many types of physical pilgrimage, but your pilgrimage is unique. It's completely different. It's a shift of consciousness. You're going from one state of consciousness to another state of consciousness. You're activating your Sato Pradhan condition and deactivating your Tamo Pradhan state. So you're reversing the effect of time. You're reversing the effect of entropy. So you're going totally against the grain. Don't expect it to be an easy ride. Everybody expects it to be an easy ride, but I don't see how it can be. Yes, storms do come and they break your remembrance. So make effort to make this pilgrimage of remembrance very firm. You are karma yogis. Stay in yoga while doing this and that. As much as possible, let your hands do the work and let your hearts be connected in remembrance. You have been lovers for half the cycle, and you have been remembering your beloved. Baba, we get a lot of difficulties here. Now, make us into the masters of the world of happiness. So if you stay on the pilgrimage of remembrance, your sins will finish. That means your tendency to do something which is against your best interests will finish. You will only do what will carry you to where you need to go. You claimed the inheritance of heaven and have now lost it. I can smell gas. Is there any leak or anything? No, it's okay. Maybe from the outside. Baba was heaven, and this is why people speak of ancient Bharat. People give a lot of respect to Bharat because it is the greatest and the most ancient civilization. You know that destruction is just ahead. All these people are thinking about climate change, and they know they can't do anything to stop it. Those who understand everything very well have a lot of happiness inside. Many people come to your exhibitions. Look how many different varieties of sages and holy men came to Ahmedabad. And they say, you are telling the truth. So there must have been some big exhibition in Ahmedabad. But it doesn't sit in their intellects that if you're telling the truth, it means you have to claim the inheritance from the Father. As soon as they leave here, everything finishes. They say, yes, yes, this is true, this is good, but then you know that the Father is taking us to heaven. There will neither be the jail of a womb nor the jail and prison there. You will not see any sign of any kind of jail. Neither jail will exist. Here, all this is the pomp of Maya. It looks good, but in reality, it's a prison. Nowadays, everything happens quickly. Even death continues to take place quickly. Large-scale death, quickly. In the Golden Age, there will be no such calamities. Here, death happens quickly, and there will be a lot of sorrow. There's a big natural calamity like a tsunami. This one that happened in 2004, I think nearly 500,000 were killed. That's a lot. Boom. The whole earth will become new. In the Golden Age, there was the kingdom of deities, and it will get reestablished. As you make further progress, you will see what happens. Progress means the development of the BK organization, world study, and all of that. There will be very fearsome scenes. You children have had visions. So the main thing for the children is the pilgrimage of remembrance. And this is the pilgrimage of the ascending stage. Acha. To the sweetest, beloved, long lost and now found children, love, remembrance, and good morning from the mother, the father, Bap Dada, and the spiritual father says namaste to the spiritual children. Spiritual children say namaste to the spiritual father. So the essence for dharana, always remain aware that you are Brahmins, and God is teaching only us Brahmins. We are now becoming Brahmins who are in the process of becoming deities. So secondly, fill your aprons with the jewels of knowledge and donate them. Leave the shores of this iron-aged, impure world. Do not be afraid of the storms of Maya. There's this expression, paper tiger, right? Looks like a tiger, but it's actually just paper, so don't worry about putting your head in its mouth. The blessing. May you be a master creator who stays away from all the attractions of creation with your powerful stage. So a powerful stage means that you can see through it. You know that it's not real. It looks good. Eye candy, ear candy, all this stuff. When a master creator remains stable in the powerful stage and intoxication of being a master knowledgeful, then he will be able to stay away from all attractions. He knows better. This is because the creation will now create more different colors and forms. So Maya comes as attraction, the colors and forms, or terror. So you come under the spell of attraction or under the spell of terror, and you have to be not under either of those spells. So all the mistakes of your childhood, like being careless, lazy, and not caring, or not realizing that it matters, so you have to forget that. You can reveal your powerful form of a Shakti, your form of holding the weapons. Do you like holding weapons? Some people, they have trouble with this idea of holding weapons because they think spirituality means to be disarmed. But here it means you need to be armed and fierce so that Maya stays out of the way. So your form of holding the weapons, and you're constantly lit, your soul is awake, aware, and then you will be called a master creator. So you decide what happens, not you are a victim of circumstances. And the slogan is, be so hard. Do you want to become hard? Hold the weapons and be hard. Do you like that? He's saying you need to be hard. But you think you have to be soft. So be so hard in your state of mind that no situation can melt you. So that means resilient, resistant, and that you will not become susceptible, or you will not succumb to the different temptations. So, voila. So these deities who are armed and dangerous are the Shiv Shaktis, and they have the third eye and usually their third eye is, normal eyes are this way and third eye is vertical. So that means you're seeing things from a different angle, and you're seeing from the angle of what it is rather than the angle of how it appears. So what we experience through sense perception is appearances. And there is an expression that appearance is not reality. So a person may appear to be very bad, but they may just be trying to protect their vulnerability. And so you look at their performance, but you don't see what's behind it. So what he wants us to do with this third eye is to really see where a person's coming from and to relate to a person as who they are, not as how they are presenting themselves, which a lot of times people will behave in a way that is defensive because they have to protect themselves in all kinds of situations. And ego is sometimes spoken of as ego defense mechanism. And so that takes the form of aggression very often. So if someone is afraid or they feel less than or insecure, one of the ways they will handle that feeling is by being aggressive. But if you have your third eye, you will know that the person is not actually aggressive, but that they are insecure. And so you don't need to react to the aggression thinking that it's real. You need to know that this person is actually feeling insecure, and what they need from you is just a feeling that everything's okay and not to worry. So you can give them that feeling, and then they won't need to be aggressive. And sometimes people will avoid you, and they'll go away from you. And it doesn't mean that they don't like you. It means that they don't feel good about themselves. So you have to know that. And you have to see past the performance, because what people do from ego is two things. One is the superiority, and one is the inferiority. And both of them are not real, because when you're body conscious, it means you flip-flop between inferiority and superiority. And so the key is to find yourself. And finding yourself means recognizing yourself. And one of the statements that came in a Murli recently, and which is also in the Gita, is you have to endure fame and defamation. So if you happen to be a very, very high soul, you have to endure that, because sooner or later that will be recognized. So you have to handle that. And some people, they can't handle fame any more than some people can't handle defamation. You see, so usually people are not that high. So usually what they have to handle more is defamation. And because life on earth is a power struggle, all about who's higher and who's lower, because people want to be high, but they don't want to be arrogant. It's a quite complicated situation when you're in this transition. You're no longer in the old world, so you can't operate according to the conventions of the old world, because you know that it's all fake, so you can't really do that. Sometimes you get into it and you say, I have to do that performance, even though you know it's not real and that you're not being true to yourself. So it feels uncomfortable. But then you also are very aware of your weaknesses and your shortcomings. And so then you can't really say, oh no, I am super yogi, because not every day and not all day. And so you don't know what to be and how to be. And also, once you start to remember Shiva Baba, not only do all your impurities come up and disturb you, but also you become more and more sensitive. Because unless you're really sensitive, you cannot perceive God, because he's so subtle. Unless you're really sensitive, you can't perceive the meanings behind the appearances. But then you have to match your sensitivity with this thing, what Baba said in the slogan about being hard. So you don't have to be hard in the sense of nasty or impenetrable, but you have to be hard in the sense that you can't be manipulated. And manipulation is something that goes on all the time. Lots and lots of manipulation. And sometimes people say, Brahmins say, if somebody is dictatorial and manipulative, it means that's wrong. But Baba will say, whatever it is, but if you're around it, it means you need to learn how to be independent of it. Because if you didn't need to learn that, you wouldn't be around someone who's performing in that way. So in the worldly angle, you look at people's behavior and you classify it as good or bad, right or wrong, according to the worldly conventions, which has to do with pleasant and unpleasant. But in spirituality, you're moving away from pleasant and unpleasant because that's sense perception. And this is why you have to have this third eye, which is vertical, which sees things from a very different angle. And the third eye, especially for being able to answer the question, why? Because somebody who is objecting to someone else's behavior, they're manipulative, they're tyrannical. People do complain when they find somebody like that. And then Baba will say, well, you're just looking at it superficially. You're not understanding what's going on in this scene of the drama, because every scene in the drama has a lot of significance. It's very meaningful, but it's quite difficult to perceive the deeper meaning behind these scenes. And so when there is a scene in drama which creates a feeling inside you, that feeling could be you like it or you dislike it, because Maya is attraction, repulsion. So you get a feeling inside coming along. You like something, you don't like something. And then it means that you say, okay, here is something that I need to understand. And it's something I need to understand about myself. Part of the difference between being soul conscious and body conscious is this, that when you're body conscious, it means that you're living on the surface of your body. And that means that you're in absolute contact with sense perception. So whatever you can see, whatever you can hear, smell, everything, that is your world. And this is called to be externalized. You're living on the surface of your body. And then he says soul conscious means you go and live on the inside of your face, which is called antarmukhi. Antarmukhi means you're creating a very clear distance between yourself and what you perceive through your sense perceptions. And generally, when a situation comes, it attracts the soul into perceiving it. And so you get pulled into the surface of your body. And it's quite difficult to remain independent of your sense perceptions while this is going on. So it's constantly, you're being tested. And if you practice this idea of being a karma yogi, it means effectively that you stay on the inside and you view whatever is going on from the angle of what is the message that this scene has to tell me about me. But when you're on the outside, you interpret it usually as you either are impressed or critical or carried away or something. You're under the influence of that scene. And so then what you do, how you perform your role when you're under the influence of that scene is a reaction to that scene. And this is why Baba uses the expression, like when somebody is doing something that you think is not right, he says you should consider that they're under another influence, right? He uses this expression, under another influence. So what is this other influence? It is that they are experiencing that scene as a sensory perception, and they're pulled into it, and so they react to it. That means it activates their ego defense mechanisms. And so Raj Yoga involves being in circumstances which are specially calculated to activate your ego defense mechanisms, and for you to perceive everything from the surface of your body, and then you're trapped in the sense that it activates your Iron Age sanskaras. And then after a few weeks, months, years, you might get it that, oh my God, I did get trapped. And there's one of the plays of Shakespeare, which is called A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is about this. And you can see that on YouTube if you want. There is a version of it that was made in about 1968. So it's a very, very old film. And it shows how a juice of a flower went on someone's eyes and cast a spell on them, and they got attracted by something which is not at all attractive. So people, it's all about manipulation, how people manipulate each other, especially in romantic relationships. And why Baba talks so much about us being celibate and pure and so on is partly physically to be celibate and pure, but also to become quite expert in understanding how the manipulation is done and how you get pulled into things because of something like ego massage. And the ego massage is, what he says, and he said in the Murli, you have to be deities worthy of worship, means honoring someone who is pure in soul and pure in body. And what makes you impure is attraction. And so Baba talked about Maya as colors and forms, attraction, temptation. It can be attraction of another human being's body or charms or personality or whatever. Or it can be in a political arena, power, influence, importance. A lot of people are very pulled by that because they feel inferior. And so if that is proposed to them, they will bite on it. And they'll bite on it not because it's real, but because of the feeling of inferiority. You'll bite on anything that looks like it'll make you feel more high. And because more higher, yeah. And because you want love, everybody wants love. Nobody has enough love, right? So this physical attraction is partly to have sense gratification, but a lot of it is because you want to be loved. So you want to be loved, you want to be honored. So Baba says, okay, I understand that, but do not get deceived by Maya. He says Maya deceives you. It will offer you something which is a temptation. It's not real. It itself is manipulation. And so if you are in a circumstance where you feel someone is being tyrannical and bossing you around and pushing you around, and then you're also in a circumstance where someone is, bribing you and corrupting you and all of that, you need that, because you need to get skilled and not get trapped and caught up by that stuff. Because as long as you carry on doing that, you can't actually progress in Raj Yoga. And as much as you progress, that much these things will be more subtle and they'll catch you more easily, because your weaknesses are hidden away in deep corners of your soul. And if you have to become a king, you can't have any of that. Otherwise, you can be someone can dethrone you anytime. Or you will allow traitors to come too close. You wouldn't understand who's for real, who's not for real. You wouldn't understand people's hidden motives, hidden agendas, all of that. So it's all about perception. And so this third eye, which interprets what's going on from a very different angle, is an incredible gift. So, when he says, claim your inheritance, it's not about golden palaces and a sack full of diamonds in the golden age. That's not your inheritance. That's easy come. It's really the knowledge that's your inheritance. And it's now in the confluence age that he says, I am your father. And this Brahma Baba, the great usefulness of Brahma Baba is he's an example of a person who followed Srimad. And Mama also. So what you have in Baba and Mama is you have Brahma Baba is male, Mama is female. So you have a female version and a male version. And Brahma Baba is married with children, a business. So you have someone who's like that, and Mama, who was single, young, and under the enthralled to the family and everything, and so you have these two people who embody the main social situations that people could be in. You could be either a male or female, or married or single, or with your own family, or in somebody else's family. And it's all about breaking free from the chains, the bondages, where people don't allow you to be who you are. And the key that he says, the key to claiming this independence, so Swaraj, self-sovereignty, doesn't mean that you yourself are going to be the king. No. Self-sovereignty means Swaraj, you are independent and not dependent. So there is this Hindi word, adhin, where someone has power over you. And you can't be a king if anybody has any power over you. And so you have to pass through many situations where you are with people who attempt to bring you under their influence, either through tyranny or through manipulation, through temptation, through threats, through promises, through every kind of thing. And if you say this is wrong, no doubt it's wrong from a certain angle, but that's not the point. The point is, if you didn't have somebody like that, you would never get free. You would never get free. And you have to be in that situation until you get the point. And then you go into the next problem. Because once you finish one school or one class, you graduate, you get into another one, which is higher education, more difficult. And it's a never-ending progression until you reach your death. And so when that comes as a gateway, so you have to make sure that you're not afraid of death. And so you need to be in life-threatening situations. And a life-threatening can be a threat to your ego, because this, what Baba calls ego, the vice of ego or arrogance, is that you might lose face if you get exposed, and you need to be able to handle that. If you're corrupt, if you're not real and you get exposed, then you can't handle it because it's too much shame. But if you are for real and you get exposed, your exposed state or your unexposed state is the same thing. So what's the problem? But if there's a big difference and your unexposed state is really not good and your exposed state is very nice, there's a big difference inside and outside. But if you're the same inside and outside and you get exposed, it's like, okay, this is me. You knew it was me. Everybody knows this is me and this is me. So have a nice day. No problem. But you have to know you will be exposed. And so don't mind. And if there's too much difference, you will mind. So make sure that there isn't difference. And then when it comes, it's fine. So also, you may be disempowered by illness or some disability, mental disability, whatever it happens to be. It's a very big test, because you are not able to use your body as it's supposed to be usable for. And that is very difficult for the soul to handle. You're in your body isn't working properly, your brain is not helping you, and everybody mocks you. That's a problem. That's not very nice, but it's a test to be able to manage that I've seen at the end of life of great yogis. I've seen people treat them like that. And that's quite hard to manage. And people will do that. So, of course, they will clock up negative karma. But the person who has to pass through it and hold themselves together, they will clock up a lot of very powerful positive karma. So these exams are not very nice, but if you want to go all the way there, you need to be a little bit aware of what sort of exams there are to be taken. You're free to take Raj Yoga to the level that you think you can handle. And he makes us go slowly, slowly, little by little. And one thing that I found quite useful is to hold the idea that everything that happens, good or bad, is a rehearsal for the next thing. Because slowly, slowly, you get more experience, you get more strong. And Baba had said in Abhyat Murli, anything that happens to you that's really bad in any way is specifically to make you experience and to make you strong. And this play, the Midsummer Night's Dream, is very interesting to show you how easy it is for people to manipulate you and make a fool out of you if you fall into the trap. And the trap was represented by this flower juice on the eyes that makes you perceive something not very good as very good. And in that way you make a fool of yourself, and then everybody laughs at your expense. But if you get it, then you are, like they say, forearmed and forewarned. So Baba tells everything, but sometimes people don't get it. This is why he said in the in the blessing that, okay, you were careless, you didn't pay attention, etc., etc. That was your childhood. But now it's like we're at a higher level of education. And so you have to be really, every step you take has to be really carefully done. So he said in the beginning of the Murli, if you are accurate in your thoughts, words, and actions, you will do what you need to do to get through this obstacle course, to get around these manipulations and traps and so on that people lay for you consciously to be able to laugh at your stupidity. And then you feel bad. But Baba says, this is a serious piece of study. This is not just, do the garbaras and have some toli and dress up. That's okay, but, that's not what this is really about. And so I think it's quite good to be, I think also part of your honor is I am studying the highest possible study there is. And by God, I am adopted through the soul who is the soul of Krishna. It's Brahma Baba is the soul of Krishna. That's not an ordinary person. And all these other BKs, you don't know who's sitting next to you. Mm-hmm. Some are very, very high, but you wouldn't realize. Some are very low, but you wouldn't realize because of this appearances and reality and all that. So our third eye is this instrument that Baba is giving us, which has to be carefully polished and kept clear so you can see the reality and the difference between the reality and the appearances, which is also what is meant by Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, who has the swan who can distinguish between milk and water, stones and pearls. And so that's a very discriminating intellect. So if somebody discriminates on the base of bodily aspects, that's how people use the word discrimination, but it's not that accurate use of the word. You have to really discriminate what is what. And I think that's a lot to do with what Raj Yoga is about. And Hatha Yoga doesn't deal with any of that at all. So it's a different thing. So I will stop there, and I don't know if anybody has any questions or any comments that you would like to mention.
Om Shanti. Hello. Om Shanti.
It's okay.
Can you hear me?
Anyone from here?
I can hear Neil by, but apparently you can't.
Yeah, can you say again, Neil?
Unmute. He's muted.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Yeah, so it's a good analogy that the drama at the confluence stage is like a minefield, and our third eye of knowledge is like our, what do they call those? Like a minesweeper. Yes, it helps us negotiate the minefield of Maya and the wonderful obstacles that come along to teach us such wonderful lessons.
Yeah, I think the military, there's some military who have special equipment like the Delta Force or some of these people, and they have the kind of binoculars that can see in the dark. Infrared, yeah. And all sorts of weapons they have. So we have to have our full quota of every kind of weapon.
This
including
includes the
a
powers?
suicide pill. You get a suicide pill, and that's when you have to bow. Yeah. But it's wonderful, right? Would you have it any other way? Not really. When you're going through hell, it's not very nice. But afterwards, you say, yeah, I did it.
While doing it is
Yes.
And then I just want to share my experience with triathlon.
Yes.
The last phase was the difficult one.
So explain to everybody what the triathlon involves.
The triathlon is more about swim, bike, and run. And my weakest thing is the run. And that is the last one when you are already exhausted and burnt out.
So you have to do how many miles?
It is long, not natural, but it's 1.2 miles swim and 56 miles bike and 13.1 miles run. It's a half of marathon. Full is like 140 miles, 140.6 miles full. So anyhow, the lesson I learned, I had that experience, but opportunity to practice that again was one thing is when you have some music or something going on, you can go far beyond the signals body is telling you. And I did like 100 miles easily with Murli's going on and then enjoying all of that. And then I'm here already. So that is smooth sail. But body knows that how much it can handle. And then it figured out to prepare itself. Okay, this guy is not giving up. Let me prepare myself to get through this. But when there is no audio coming back, you have to create your own music for inside. So that is where you have to handle both the signals coming from your body, and then you have to see like, oh my God, I have to do another 20 more miles to go, and there is no other thing to distract yourself. You have to prepare yourself to stick to that. So that's where the real endurance comes.
And it's quite a good analogy for what happens to BKs, because I think BKs get caught up in service as a distraction. And with COVID and everything, service was sort of stopped. And I think it was really very good because it forced the BKs to be in contact with the self. So Daddy Yankee used to always say that people who say that they're busy are actually lazy. And we used to wonder, what does she mean by that? And I think that it's because of this, that if you keep yourself busy, it's because you're too lazy to really do the real work. And that's a reality. So what a wonderful practice this is. Okay, so let us have a moment with Baba, and you all have a wonderful day.